Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Random Gamer Riven, and on behalf of Randomised Gaming I welcome you to our look at the brand newly released Turrican Flashback collection. Now this collection is being released on the PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch. And we actually picked this up on the 19th, that was last week, as the game inadvertently got released early on PlayStation 4, although they have now pulled it from stores in preparation for its release on the 29th of January. And just before I go any further, I won't be talking over too much of this video. I'll only be talking over this introductory section and the section where we look at the additional features such as the rewind and the screen filter options included on the collection. For the gameplay sections, which you can jump to via the chapters below, there will be no commentary, as I know how fantastic the Chris Huelsbeck music score is for the whole franchise to listen to. So what is the Turrican Flashback collection? Well, it's a collection of 4 classic Turrican games. And Turrican is of course a legendary series that was first released on the Commodore 64, but probably best remembered for the Amiga conversions. The series also got later installments on the Nintendo Entertainment System, Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo, although the final game on Super Nintendo, Super Turrican II, remains the final game in the series to date. While Factor 5, the studio behind the Amiga's ports of the game and later Super Nintendo and Mega Drive titles, along with Manfred Trenz, the creator of this franchise and the original Commodore 64 version, have tried multiple times to bring the series to 3D. In the end, all these 3D versions of Turrican have sadly always ended up being cancelled. And I can find evidence of at least 3 cancelled 3D titles. There was 2 in development by Factor 5, but both of them seem to have only ever been vertical slice concept builds, so weren't really that far in development. Manfred Trenz, however, the creator of the series, did get incredibly far in developing Turrican 3D, which was planned for PlayStation 1, Dreamcast and PC, I believe for around a release of 1999. Apparently it had been in development in for 2 years. There's quite a lot of videos of it up and running on various formats, although it was still a long way from completion it seems, but that was sadly cancelled as well. But that was probably the closest we had to a 3D Turrican game. Okay, so what does the Turrican Flashback collection contain? Well, it contains 4 games. You get Turrican 1, the Amiga's version, you get Turrican 2, the Final Fight, the Amiga's version, you get Mega Turrican, which is also Turrican III, and finally you get Super Turrican, which was a sort of mismatched version, kind of a bit based on the NES game, kind of its own game. Sadly, however, you are missing Super Turrican on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and you are strangely missing Super Turrican II, which is a huge bummer, as that's probably one of the best, if not the best game in the series. Now, the Turrican Flashback collection is getting both a digital and physical release on both the PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch. And the digital version in the UK was priced at £24.99, and I believe the US dollar price is $29.99. I would assume the euro price is the same as the US dollar price, but it may be slightly less. The Flashback collection is also being published by In. The reason I have to mention that is we have another Turrican collection also releasing this year, which is the Turrican Anthology, and that's going to be split over 2 discs. And that is being published by Strictly Limited Games. And because we are getting 2 retro released collections, in fact it's going to be over 3 game discs, that is why I think Factor 5 have made a bit of a royal mess up with this re-release. One of the primary reasons I say this is none of these Turrican collection games being released this year contain all the Turrican games you would think a top quality collection should have. So just to confirm, the Strictly Limited Games collection, so Turrican Anthology Volume 1 contains Turrican 1 Amiga, Turrican 2 Final Fight Amiga, Super Turrican SNES, Super Turrican Director's Cut, and here's the funny one, Mega Turrican Score Attack. So we have no idea what the score attack is either, but it's obviously not the full game. And Turrican Anthology Volume 2, also by Strictly Limited Games, contains Turrican III Amiga, Mega Turrican Mega Drive, Mega Turrican Director's Cut Mega Drive, which we have no information on what it contains, Super Turrican II SNES, and Super Turrican 1 Score Attack. And again, none of the strictly limited collections contain the fantastic Nintendo Entertainment System Super Turrican programmed by Manfred Trenz himself. Now, they are priced at €34.99 each at the minute on their website, so they are actually more expensive than the in Flashback collection. And I should add, if you want to buy the strictly limited games versions from their website and you live in the UK, you will need to pay import tax now. And if I'm being honest, because of how strictly limited games have split the Turrican games over those two discs, I actually still think the in Flashback collection is the better buy, both in terms of the games you get and for value of money. Although I'll be honest, I do think at $24.99 for 4 games it is very, very overpriced, and one that really only appeals to hardcore Turrican fans, of which I'm not sure how many are left. So right now we can only hope that the in Flashback collection gets a patch or DLC to add in some of the missing Turrican games. Now, as the randomised gaming team are true Turrican fans, this is our list of Turrican titles we would like to have seen in this collection. So for Turrican 1, we would have loved to have seen the original Commodore 64 version, the Amiga version, and the Mega Drive version, which was an unofficial version done by Accolade. Would have been nice to be included. For Turrican 2, we would love to have seen the original Commodore 64 version, the Amiga's version, and the 1995 PC port, which had brilliantly redone graphics, which would have been nice to have been included as well. As more a wishful thinking inclusion, it would be nice if they included the Mega Drive port of Turrican II, but as that unfortunately got tied in with a Universal Soldiers license, unless they were able to contact the developer and get the code prior to it being reskinned as Universal Soldiers, I think that's pretty much an impossibility to include. For Turrican 3, we'd like to have seen both the Amiga's version and the Mega Drive version included, along with all those new Director's Cut score attack stuff they're doing. And seeing as M2 have been doing new games for collections, it perhaps would have been nice if they'd actually contracted Manfred Trenz and actually asked him to do a Commodore 64 port of Turrican 3, which I know is widely regarded as a holy grail game for Commodore 64 collectors they never quite got. So if you ported it to the Commodore 64, you could also sell it as well, and I'm sure that would be very popular for collectors. The next game that should be included in these collections is the fantastic Nintendo Entertainment System of Turrican Manfred Trenz did himself, and it's kind of a mix of Turrican 1 and 2 with some new features as well. It has a fantastic final boss as well. Then of course there is the Super Nintendo Super Turrican, which is a totally different game to the NES one, and it'd be great to include that. I will admit the original SNES version is utterly unfinished, and even the Director's Cut version we've seen so far was very messy, so it'd be nice to get a complete cut of the game as well if possible. Then of course we also have Super Turrican II on Super Nintendo, which should also be included in these collections, and I'm really disappointed it's not in the in collection from the get-go. Finally, I feel they should have contacted Manfred Trenz and actually included Rendering Ranger R2, or as it was going to be known in Europe and North America as Targ, because I know he had multiple versions of the game, one I believe without the 3D rendered graphics and one with 3D rendered graphics, and it only got released in Japan in the end, and I believe he wasn't a big fan of the Japanese version because they had to make some graphical changes as well to Targ. But we have actually got a video on the channel of the unreleased prototype for Targ. But seeing as Rendering Ranger R2 not only is a little cameo to Super Turrican 2, as you can see the ship crashing in the background on the first stage, but the fact it's such a spiritual follow-on to the Turrican series, and even you could argue it's a game in the Turrican series because it plays so much like it, I really wish that was included on this collection as an extra, not least because next to no one has ever played Rendering Ranger R2, as it was only released in Japan and had an extremely limited release. That means it's just ridiculously expensive to buy these days. Finally, it would be nice to include all the different versions, so EU, Japan, North America, of all the various games. And I know there are a few versions I haven't listed, such as sort of Spectrum, etc. But I've listed what I think is all the best versions, as I'll be honest, I'm not really too interested in playing the Game Boy release of Turrican. While it would be nice if they could include all those additional versions, those ones I've listed are by far the best versions of Turrican available. And while I mentioned it, it'd be nice if perhaps Factor 5 looked at doing a director's cut or patching most of the game, so you get the original release and perhaps a patched cut for a lot of the games. I know there's a few outstanding bugs in them. I know Turrican II on the Amiga was released before the Commodore 64 version, and Factor 5 really messed up the final level. They also made quite a graphical blunder on the opening intro. They didn't correctly colour in the enemy battleship. So basically the second battleship shown in the opening intro is actually supposed to be red, as that's supposed to be the machine ship. So it would have been nice if you had the original version and perhaps say a patched up version with some bug fixes or maybe gameplay improvements to actually improve the games. There are one or two things they could do with improvement. Also, actually stopping the timer would be a really nice feature, so you can actually explore the levels to your heart content, because I think that would actually make Turrican a better game. And finally, it would be fantastic if we could actually get a finished and complete version of Super Turrican on Super Nintendo. The original game was utterly unfinished. The director's cut they did release didn't really improve much. It was actually an earlier build, and a lot of the content was still missing, such as the last world, which seemed odd as they had claimed that the last world had actually been finished, but we had no sign of it in the director's cut. So maybe this time round we'll finally get a complete cut of Super Turrican. But if not, maybe it's time Factor 5 dust off their old development Pegasus kit and actually finish the game. So summing up just before we start really getting into the game footage, I will say I am disappointed in the way Factor 5 have done this collection. It looks very amateurish and it's not normally what I expect from German developers who do normally do a very efficient job, although Factor 5 do have a history of not finishing off their titles properly, and it just looks sloppy the way this has all been released. I realise in and Strictly Limited Games have been handling it, but it just looks like it's a total mess. And it's not the way you really want to bring new fans to the Turrican series. Either they should have released all the games individually at a budget price, or they should have done, as we said, a complete collection with all the games that I've just discussed. While it is great we finally have a modern retro re-release of Turrican, in fact Turrican 1 and 2, I think this is their first official re-releases. Certainly the Amiga's versions haven't been re-released on anything else, which is fantastic. I'm really grateful these have been re-released, hence why we actually picked it up, but it's hard to recommend this to newcomers and people who haven't seen the series before, and even sort of casual players of the series. I think they're going to A, be put off by the price tag, and B, be put off by the lack of games in this collection. If this had included everything that I mentioned, I think this could have easily warranted a £30 price tag, because then you'd have had lots of different games to play and lots of different versions, so you would have spent hours just playing each and every game. But as it is 4 games and it's not every rendition and not every version, and you're missing key titles in the franchise in this collection, it's disappointing. Same with the Strictly Limited one, that is also missing games. There are more games if you buy the 2 Strictly Limited collection versions, but the fact they've put it over 2 collections and it's going to cost you 70 quid to get them both is really expensive. I'll be honest, I'm concerned this re-release may well fall flat on its face because of how badly it's been done, which is a real concern, as I would love to see Factor 5 and Manfred Trenz actually work together again to create a new Turrican game. Hopefully Factor 5 and ININ might get a chance to see this video and actually look at including more titles in the Flashback collection via patching or via DLC. One of the two. Even if to pay for them, I'd just be glad if we could get more of the games in this collection. As it stands now, as I said, a bare bones 4-game pack just doesn't do the series justice. I even found some great fan sites out there with some great source material and sort of scans and whatnot, and none of that is included in this collection either. It's quite sad to see that you literally only get the 4 base games. There's no audio test in the main menu, there's no art gallery, there's just nothing, no interviews, no videos, nothing. Now, as someone who's actually worked in the industry professionally, both in publishing and development on video games, I'm actually going to say this to Factor 5 and ININ Games. If they do add in most of the missing titles that I've mentioned, I will gladly live stream the collection and gladly do a playthrough of every Turrican game back to back in the franchise. And maybe you can even do a charity donation or something while we're doing it. But the trouble is, right now this collection is missing key entries in the series, noticeably Super Turrican II on Super Nintendo and Super Turrican on the Nintendo Entertainment System. On top of that, you simply have nothing in the way of additional content as well, outside of the 4 included games running on emulators, I believe. So here is the collection title screen itself. You can see Turrican Flashback, and we'll be taking a quick look at the various games on it. I'll start by just looking at all the few additional features you do get. But as mentioned, it is a bare bones collection of just Turrican 1, Turrican 2, Mega Turrican and Super Turrican. And there's not actually much mention in that text of Manfred Trenz, which is a bit disappointing. They keep saying, oh, Factor 5. Well, actually, Manfred Trenz is the one that designed the game. And Factor 5 just ported it originally, I believe, and then they sort of carried on developing it. So here we go with all the developments. It's got the copyrights there, but it doesn't... There are certainly missing, I think, 1 or 2 games. I'm not sure the NES one's actually mentioned there. They only seem to be mentioning the various versions of Super Turrican, not the NES version. It's either in games, development and studio. Chris Huelsbeck's done title screen music, but that's about it. So you see there, emulated games powered by Rock Lobster, KGen 20 and KSN. And it's actually coded by Steve Snake, who's infamous for doing the original KGen emulators. As this is KGen 20, I'm going to take a guess that is KGen 2020 and is a professional version of KGen not released to the public. So here we go with the Turrican Flashback. We've got various degrees of scaling. You've got the rewind functional speed. You have got a number of screen options. So I'm going to show you what these options do. But I will mention that as someone who's got a proper CRT in the office, the CRT we've got is 2001, and it actually looks vastly better than anything the options you get in game can do. That all the options the game tend to do with the screen filters just tend to darken the picture, whereas the CRT are often quite bright, colourful, vibrant pictures for the retro games. So there's definitely something lost with a lot of these screen filters. As you can see there, you've got 3 aspect ratios. You can have a widescreen, you can have a pixel perfect aspect, and you can have a full screen one. You do have 3 wallpapers. You get Mega Turrican wallpaper. You can adjust the brightness of the wallpaper and the saturation slightly as well, but you've only got the 3, which bits is more. You've got one from Turrican II. That was actually used for the cover of Super Turrican and Super Turrican 2, and then you've got the flashback one, and that's it. They could do quite a bit more with it. There's quite a lot more art for Turrican. I'm surprised they didn't use one of the other ones as well. So yeah, there's a lack of artwork there on the wallpapers, but again, you've got a couple. So you do have quite a few mask options. You can use different types of filtering. So you've got scaling, crisp, smooth, and soft. I think the middle option was probably the best for certain games. So Razor was quite nice as well. You might not be able to see it change that much, the actual video. You can also adjust the colour spectrum as well, which is a weird one. You can have black and white, RGB, and then you can change the RGB around to change all the colours. It's a nice option, not one I can imagine you'd be using for long periods other than for a bit of a laugh, but it's nice it's included. The rewind speed is for when you're using the rewind functionality in game, but you can't use that if you want to unlock achievements. So there is one filter, which is the Lottie CRT filter. Again, I don't think this is quite... Yes, I think right. You can see there, you can adjust. If you want to have a really bad looking 90s curved TV, you can do. Although, seeing as like we have a late life CRT that's actually flat screen, it completely gets rid of all the crappy curve. It seems a bit weird that they reintroduced it. We've got the corners, you've got the CRT. So you can actually get the Trinity curve as well. So there's different types of curve. Quite why you said why you'd want the curve is beyond me. Seeing as we've got flat screen TV here in the office that's from sort of mid-early 2000s, and that just has just flat screen, just looks beautiful. So you can adjust the intensity and the mask to give it a different look. Incidentally, for some reason, the Elgato turns it purple when you intensify it. That doesn't actually happen on the actual collection. It's just an issue with the Elgato capture. You do have a degree of scan lines, although even the weaker scan lines, I think, are too fierce. But you can reduce the intensity and just cycling through the various intensity options. You can adjust the sharpness as well, although this is like a really, really bad CRT when you have the sharpness that low. You can also adjust the curvature, although you'll notice there's a bit of a bug there where it... You can really add in a curve if you want to give yourself a sort of old school CRT. This type of view just makes it look weird and unpleasant, but if you want to do it like to play the game like this, you can do. I'm just quickly demoing what it looks like, but yeah, personally for me, this is just, if you want to play it on a bad 80s, 90s CRT, this is what you want to do, but I would be playing on better CRTs that look better than this even in the 90s. You can take out the curvature or put it back in if you want, or reduce it as much as you want. You can even adjust the cornering so you can turn it off or on. Again, I recommend it being on the sharpest. Even the sharpest is a little bit too blurry compared to the CRT we have in the office. Scanline intensity. I think I've set this up at the end just to like the closest I could get to our sort of office CRT, although it does actually look better. It's brighter, more colourful. Because the scan lines they often employ just seem to darken the picture, but that's probably the best look of what a genuine high quality CRT would look like. But even then, I would say our CRT we have in the office gives a better picture than this when I played through Mega Turrican the other day on the Mega Drive. And I have actually finished it now. But that's an example of all the shader options. There's only the two shades, so you can have no shader or you can have the Lottie CRT shader. But it's nice it's included. Personally, I much prefer the game looking pixel crisp and perfect like this. As that's actually more closer to what our office CRTs we've actually have. So, as you can see there, we've got that as a quick introduction of the filters. And you can see their standard mode and trophy challenge. Sadly, if you want to earn trophies in this game, you do have to, you can't use save states or cheats or anything. I should point out there are no trophies at present related to Super Turrican, which would suggest its inclusion was perhaps a little bit last minute into the collection. Although I'm glad it was included because I think a collection of just the 3 games would have been just not enough content. So just going to quickly show you the start. This to show you the rewind function. So as you see there, you can take damage, you can rewind it. Again, you can't use this feature if you want to get the trophies, but it's nice to see you being able to rewind the game if you do make a mistake. And it's great to actually use this type of mode to practice on before you go for the various trophies and to explore the game in its entirety. I do wish that you had the option to turn off the timer, which is a bit annoying, but from what I can see, most of this is purely under emulation because we had quite a few of the classic bugs that we'd seen originally in Turrican II, like the one where you get stuck in the floor when you kill the dragon boss if you die just when you kill it, which we had. Turrican II also has the option to have a dynamic HUD. You can pretty much get a full screen Turrican II, which is really nice. You've got quite a few different aspect ratios. But you can have a dynamic HUD that you can use the right analog stick to bring up, so that's quite nice. This made me wonder if this Amiga's one might be a port more, whether it's the Mega Drive and SNES ones that are emulated, but I assume they must be using an Amiga emulator as well. Yeah, the rewind function's nice, I will admit, but it's not something, me being an old school gamer, I really don't like it at all. I just think it just cheapens the game. Yeah, you can either have full screen in the dynamic HUD, or you can have the HUD on screen, slightly smaller. So if you want a really big screen, you can do it. I personally prefer actually having the HUD on screen, but I was just showing you the various options you had for Turrican II. You had a few more with the fact you could adjust the HUD on the Amiga, so that's quite a nice one. And it includes the cheats as well, although strangely it doesn't tell you like how you unlock the secret worlds and stuff. There's also the Paula stereo option, so you can adjust the music as well. I'm not sure how good this option was. I couldn't see any clear emulation errors that much. The only one, I think the pitch was slightly wrong on the Mega Turrican music, I think. Comparing it to when I was playing it on Mega Turrican 2, although I was playing that on a Mega Drive 2, but I know some games are designed for the Mega Drive 1 audio and some games are designed for the Mega Drive 2. And you can adjust the rewind speed as well if you want to make it a bit slower. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show you the text they've included again, one last look at the credits in case you haven't seen. But that's it from the commentary side. I'm now going to let these games play out. I will let you actually take a look at each of the games. I won't be commentating over any of this because you should be listening to Chris Huelsbeck's fantastic music. We'll be looking at the first level of each game here, so you can see the galaxy not so far away in the very distant future, released on Commodore Amiga. But yeah, this is classic stuff and I highly recommend it. So enjoy this video, enjoy the gameplay, and I hope you enjoy it. And certainly if you are a Turrican fan, this is definitely well worth picking up. But it is very pricey, and I will say it's hard to recommend to first-time gamers, I will be honest. But if you haven't seen the Turrican series before and like the look of this, then it's certainly worth looking at. Although I've been a bit negative on elements of this collection, like the fact there's no extras, I am really glad it has been. Finally, these games have been re-released. Some of these games we haven't actually had re-released in Europe since their original releases as well. So enjoy, and as always, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this content as well. And we'll go through the games in order, so we'll start with Turrican 1 and finishing with Super Turrican.
Welcome to Turrican! Revocable power-up.
One up. Power up. One up.
Power up. Power up. Power up. Power up. One up.